Good.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I take this opportunity once again to welcome you to the Nation Post. Today we have an opportunity to sit down with one of our very brilliant gentleman, a South Sudanese youth, an upcoming politician, and someone who is well conversant with the affairs of South Sudan. Today we have an opportunity to sit down with Mr. Chol Duang. Chol Duang, by himself, is a journalist by profession. He has worked with SSBC for close to 5 years, and he has done other personal obligations and activities. So, Chol Duang, thank you so much and welcome to the Nation Post.
It's my pleasure to be on your
We
show.
are very privileged to host you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, you're welcome. So, Chol Duang, with this opportunity we have to talk to you, I would like to begin with your journey as a journalist at SSBC. How was it like, since you are a journalist by profession?
Yeah, I'm very happy to share with you my story. As you all know, I was a journalist with South Sudan Television for close to 6 years. I went into journalism as a career because I love journalism. I love to tell stories. I love to write. I love to travel, and I was inspired by great journalists in history. Who used to come to South Sudan during the war, to report on our plight, as a Southern Sudanese who were going through persecution, from the Sudan. So these were some of the events, in my life that inspired me to become a journalist, because I wanted to tell stories of our people. And I was lucky, to be one of the few South Sudanese journalists, to work for the national television, that is
SSBC.
South Sudan Broadcasting Corporation. So it was a life-changing opportunity for me, having entered journalism at a very young age. I must have been 20 or 21 years.
Definitely. And being a journalist who has worked with the South Sudan Broadcasting Corporation, it has not lasted forever. You, at some point, quit your job, and to pursue other activities. But people did not understand why you left SSBC. So we would like to hear from you today. Why did you leave SSBC?
First of all, I do not wish to scare other young South Sudanese who intend to do journalism and become journalists in life. But there are a lot of problems along the way, for journalists, especially in South Sudan, when you become objective, when you tell stories of human rights abuses, by the state, when you tell stories of corruption, when you tell stories of, conflict which has been going on for the last years. It's not easy for someone to be objective, an objective journalist in South Sudan, unless you have to work for a state, being seen like a journalist but an undercover, security informant, for state national security. And so I ran into problem with the state agents, because I was an objective young journalist. I was telling stories of abuse, stories of corruption, and they didn't like that. And even where I work, although I'm not going to go into details, there was corruption that that was happening during my time there, which I didn't like, which I felt was wrong. And so these are some of the reasons why I quit journalism, because I realized that it was not helping me in contributing, to South Sudanese in a bigger way. And so I thought, leaving journalism and coming, into politics to be able, to be heard and, to be seen doing something for my people was, a wise decision for me.
But before we go into that political journey, you say that working with SSBC, you are not supposed to talk about the things that are happening, the corruption that you mentioned. So are you saying that you got into problems because you started speaking the truth? Or is it that you had personal issues with the management? Because speaking of truth, did you talk about the issues that are happening within SSBC or within the government as a system?
Well, I was looking at the bigger picture of the corruption and the abuse, by state institutions. I was not looking at a smaller picture of what was happening at where I was working, but it is one of the issues, that I saw, directly and personally, that corruption, was ongoing. You have, you have to report certain way, for you to be, to be taken serious by the managers of the institution. But then the bigger corruption that was ongoing, and which I saw was not at the highest level of the system. And so I felt, I have to speak up. I have to come through, a political organization to be able to, shed light on some of the injustices, that are being committed.
And speaking of speaking up, after having done that, you went into problems with the management, with the government at large, and then you went into hiding for quite some time, and people got worried. Where has Chol been? You've not been seen for almost a month in public, even on social media. Why did you go into hiding? Was your life under threat from the system or from who exactly?
I'm really not going to go into detail about that, but yes, there was a threat on my life, from some elements of the intelligence services, and that actually came after I ran into a problem with some of them. They wanted to brand me, as somebody who was, maybe working for certain people. That was not true, and so they went out looking for me, and I thought, the best way was, to go into hiding. And
some of these people accuse you of colluding with the U.S. embassy. You went to U.S. under a U.S. sponsored initiative. When you came back to South Sudan, they accused you of working hand in hand with the U.S. officials to against the government. And people think that that's one of the reasons you fell into trouble with the management of SSBC and with the security operatives. Is that true? Did you do things behind the government with the U.S. officials, given our relations?
There is not something like that at all.
Because that's
why I actually went to the U.S. Under the Young African Leaders Initiative. It's an African project that brings young Africans from across Africa to the U.S. to interact with young Americans and also with democratic institutions in America. The whole idea behind is Obama idea that young Africans should be able to be equipped with leadership skills and tools so that they are able to provide necessary resilience programs in their communities where they come from. So that was the whole idea.
Okay. Now you mentioned joining politics earlier on. You left SSBC and you joined the South Sudan United Front under former Army Chief General Paul Malonga. Why did you choose Ssuf specifically? Why South Sudan United Front?
Yeah, because with South Sudan United Front, there is a leader in the person of General Paul Malong who builds young people and who allows young people to realize their dreams, and to be able to be heard and to be seen. And so I felt, Ssuf was, the best platform for me to be able, to push through some of the ideas that I feel, are important, for young people in the country.
Okay. Speaking of South Sudan United Front and General Paul Malong, General Paul Malong has been part of the government for quite almost throughout his life. He has served South Sudan throughout his lifetime. But earlier on, you said that you accused the government of corruption and all that. Yeah. But then your party leader, that is General Paul Malong, was part of that system. Don't you think that maybe you went into the wrong direction by joining the movement that was part of the system in the first place?
I actually wouldn't wish to agree with that narrative that General Paul Malong was part of the system and may have committed corruption. It's not true, nothing like that. There have to be evidence that he was involved in corruption, and I believe General Paul Malong, when he was in government, some of his, achievements are on record, in northern Bahr-el-Ghazal, where he was a governor, and also later on when he was, the chief of general staff of South Sudan. You can talk of now the Eagle House, which is now the headquarters of the Ministry of Defense of South Sudan, and the General Army, Command Council. It was his, signature program. He was the one who built, that institution. And back in northern Bahr-el-Ghazal, you can tell. So he was involved in development, agenda in South Sudan, and South Sudan needs development, So that's what I can say.
Yeah, speaking of still on your party, we would like to speak on that a little bit, but we shall speak more about South Sudan United Front and about your career as a politician now. Since now you are the information secretary for South Sudan United Front, as well as the spokesperson for General Paul Malong. But we shall come to that after a short break. Thank you so much.